Then we asked the question about the fate of online anonymity. One part of the tension pair was by 2020, the identification ID systems used online are tighter and more formal, fingerprints or DNA scans or retina scans. The use of these systems is the gateway to most of the internet-enabled activity that users are able to perform, such as shopping, communicating, creating content, and browsing. Anonymous online activity is sharply curtailed by 2020. The opposite was, by 2020, internet users can do a lot of normal online activities anonymously, even though the identification systems used on the internet have been applied to a wider range of activities. It is still relatively easy for internet users to create content, communicate, browse, without publicly disclosing who they are. I would call this a split verdict. This isn't a sort of consensus argument or consensus answer to my way of thinking for a variety of reasons. It's just so close, and people had quite thoughtful answers about why they even though they voted one way in the tension pair, thought that there were ways that the other tension pair might bear importance and scrutiny. There was a general sense, though, that new kinds of protections would almost inevitably be created in law and certainly in practice that would allow people to still be anonymous once they were online after they had authenticated themselves to get into the services or systems in the first place. That there will be more systems in place where now you don't have to prove who you are to get access to the people and content that you want. But once you're there, you can choose to be whoever you want, however anonymous you are. You can still play around on that. There is a sense among a variety of really wonky folks that there would be workarounds, that people can still pretend to be somebody different. They can still act pseudonymously. They can. There will be ways in which that they could gain access to some elements of the internet, even by not having to disclose directly who they were, and certainly in interactions with other users, they wouldn't necessarily have to disclose it unless that was part of the bargain in the way that Vint was talking about this morning. And there was a sense that anonymity as a concept would probably morph into something more related to confidentiality and autonomy. That sure that there was going to be an expectation you would disclose some stuff about who you are, particularly to the gatekeepers of processes, but that they would be obliged to protect who you were. They would be obliged to tell you more of what they were going to do with your stuff. You would insist on that even as a price to entry with their services. And so it was sort of what was happening with third parties in your data that was the most important element of the relationship here, rather than your interactions with other internet users. And there was obviously a sense that the rise of social media is a challenge to anonymity and authentication. And in other work that we're doing, but particularly in these expert answers, there was a sense that reputation management and general behavior with information responsibility was more the way that people would invest their energy in these things, would think about who they were, what they were going to disclose, how they were going to disclose it, to whom they were going to disclose it in the way that Vint was talking about this morning. We have multiple identities, and the sort of tiering of that and the segmenting of that will be honored by most of the sort of big places that people hang out online.